What is up, guys? This is Tcg Sam here, and in today's video I'm coming at you guys with another episode of like Tech Tuesday, kind of, where I got 5 budget tech cards that you should consider picking up if you haven't already. But before we begin, I just want to ask you guys to please remember, if you haven't already, leave a like, comment, subscribe, because it really helps keep me motivated to keep posting more videos like this, and it really helps the channel grow. But without any further ado, let's just hop straight into it. So the first card I'm going to reveal is the Transmigration Prophecy. This is a very simple card effect that just says target 2 cards in the graveyard, shuffle those targets into the deck. So at the time of recording, Drytrons is one of the most powerful decks in the Yu-Gi-Oh meta because they're allowed to get resources from the graveyard as well as their hand. So the hand effects that tribute the Drytrons and put them in grave, the Drytrons in the graveyard have additional value because they can summon themselves back. And if you hit them with the Transmigration Prophecy, let's say they have a Drytron in the graveyard and they tribute a Ben 10 or another another Drytron, you chain this, shuffle the 2 back into the deck, and they just lose so many resources then. It's important to note this is a normal trap card, which means it's searchable off a card like Trap Trick, which is why I think it definitely should not be slept on. Of course, it is inherently a neg 1, which isn't the greatest, but for a deck that heavily relies on playing out of its graveyard like Drytrons, it can be really good. It's also important, although it may not come up that often, you can shuffle back one of your own extra deck monsters, or your own monsters that are in the graveyard if you need to recycle your resources, albeit you probably want to be using this for disruption in a format where the decks are super reliant on playing out of the graveyard like Drytrons. But that's it for the first one. The next card I'm going to reveal is Get Out. Also very simple effect that just reads target 2 monsters your opponent controls that are special summoned from the extra deck, shuffle them into the deck. So with this, it's very good against those hyper combo decks that put out a lot of extra deck monsters, especially those that have like just blanket effects that can't really negate anything. At the time of recording, True King of All Calamities, against a double True King of All Calamities board, this singular Get Out just gets rid of their entire board, which is just insane. It shuffles them back in the extra deck. So if they have a card like Virtual World Shen, it doesn't put it into the graveyard, which is really important. They have cards like, I guess Burning Abyss have been seeing more popularity lately. So they have a card like Dante or Beatrice. You put them back in the extra deck without triggering their effects, which is just super powerful. It's a nice, 2-for-1. So inherently it's a +1 if it resolves. And usually you get a lot more value out of it because your opponent has committed a lot more to those extra deck monsters, be it Synchro Link, XYZ, Fusion, whatever. And it's also a normal trap card that you can search with a card like Trap Trick. Plus, it's very good to set off a Trap Trick because it's not reactive specifically like something like Torrential Tribute, to where you can't just like Trap Trick into Torrential Tribute and it'll work most of the time. This one, it's fine because once they establish the 2 extra deck monsters, you Trap Trick into this, and then this can just shuffle back the 2 extra deck monsters into your opponent's deck. So while it's a 2-for-1, the bad thing is it does put resources back into your opponent's extra deck. So like I mentioned, for a deck like Virtual Worlds, it allows them to make VFD once again, which is not the greatest, but at that point you should be so far ahead. If you have other cards that you can play with, then Get Out is certainly a card that you guys can consider picking up, especially because it's super cheap. For the next card I'm going to reveal, it's Blizzard. So Blizzard is interesting because it reads target 1 face-up spell your opponent controls. This turn negate the activated effects of that spell and all spells on the field with the same original name. If the targeted card would be sent to their opponent's graveyard, this turn is added to their hand instead. So the way this works is it's like a 1-for-1 spell negation. You target 1 face-up spell your opponent controls, and you negate the activated effects of that spell and all spells on the field with the exact same name. So if your opponent has like multiple face-up multiple Fire Formation Tenkies, I guess it negates that effect, although I don't know how relevant that is. But either way, the fact that you trade 1-for-1 for a spell negation, and essentially let's say against like a field spell like Union Hanger or something, you activate this, target that, it negates it, and then it pretty much acts in a way as like a pseudo Imperial Order or Ash Blossom against cards like that. Worst case scenario, it trades 1-for-1 with a spell. Let's say your opponent activates a Pot of Desires. They still have to pay the banish 10 cost. Then you Blizzard, even though it goes back to their hand, it still sets them back really far in terms of tempo because they can't play it again. And also they've banished 10 cards off the top of their deck. It works especially well with cards that force your opponent to pay cost. So cards like maybe like Twin Twisters or something, But also can be really good against a card like Lightning Storm if like you have a full set of back row and you have a Blizzard set, your opponent Lightning Storms you chain Blizzard, goes back to their hand, sure, but like they can't play it again that same turn, and after that they're probably going to commit cards onto the board, making it very difficult for them to resolve it again. So Blizzard, although it is inherently a neg 1 for most of the time when you're negating like a normal spell or a quick play spell, it can be very high impact against cards like field spells, because they don't get sent to the graveyard. So it pretty much just perma negates it for that turn, which is just really powerful. And especially against, like, I guess back in Striker format, it would have been really relevant against a card like Engage, because like your opponent can play multiple engages in the same turn, which of course was very broken. A card like this would have been able to stop it. So if a spell ever is that prevalent again in the future, then Blizzard is certainly a card you guys do not want to sleep on. The next card I'm going to reveal is Forbidden Chalice. So Forbidden Chalice is also a very simple card that just reads, target one face-up monster in the field until the end of the turn. The target gains 400 attack, but its effects are negated. So in a way, it acts as a quick play spell version of Infinite Impermanence, because it negates your opponent's monster effects until the end of the turn. You can slam it down from your hand pretty much whenever. Acts as a disruption on your opponent's turn to negate like maybe their normal summon Overraptor or something, for example. It's also really good because it is a quick play spell that modifies damage, which means it can lead to some shenanigans in the damage step of the battle phase. That may or may not come up, but the 400 attack boost could also help you get over like problem monsters. Like, I don't know how relevant, I don't think that's super relevant, but it's important to remember that this can boost up your own monsters as well, and pretty much it just acts as a budget impermanence in a way, because you're in a way sometimes it's even better because it allows you to play it even when you have an established board, and you have, let's say, if you had impermanent hand, you wouldn't be able to play it because you have a board. But Forbidden Chalice allows you to stop cards like I would say IP Masquerena, for example, because you start putting out your board and they try to IP Masquerena you chain Forbidden Chalice on the Masquerena. Whereas if you try to imperm the Masquerena, like, sure, I guess it works, but there are just some instances where I feel like Forbidden Chalice is actually a little bit better than Impermanence, and it's a very good budget option that you guys should not sleep on. And the final card I'm going to reveal is Retaliating C. So Retaliating C reads, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell card that includes an effect that special summons a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way, while this card is face up on the field, any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead, and if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add one earth insect monster with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, except Retaliating C. So there's quite a bit of text on this card, but to summarize, it acts as a hand trap to where if your opponent activates a spell card that special summons a monster, you get a special summon this from your hand, and then while it's on the board that way, it becomes a macrocosmos where every card gets sent to the graveyard instead. So some applications at the time recording in this, at the very beginning of March, you have Drytrons where they can activate a card like Drytron Nova, or activate a card like the Meteonis that special summons ritual summons. If you drop this to that, they lose so many resources because they're tripping a monster for Meteonis or something. So they lose the Dawn Knight that's equipped to the Union Carrier, and then like they lose the Meteonis as well, and then it pretty much shuts them off the rest of the turn if they're going first. Same thing with Nova. They summon out a guy, you just slap down Retaliating C, and then they pretty much have to just pass from there because they unless they have an out to Retaliating C that turn, because they're not able to put stuff in their graveyard while Retaliating C is on the board. So this is just really powerful. It acts as a hand trap macrocosmos. It's a lot better in a format where there's a lot of special summoning. So back in Metal Foes format, where everyone was setting like Metal Foes Fusion, this was pretty good. Back when Shaddoll Invoked was one of the top decks, this was really good because all their spells pretty much special summon monsters. And in the future, I think it could be really good again if spell effects become really prevalent to special summon monsters. The downside of Retaliating C, though, is in a way you kind of do have to out it on your turn if your deck loses to Macrocosmos, as in you have to like link summon it away or something, because it forces you to banish all cards. All cards sent from your field to the graveyard are also banished instead. So you may have to out it later on. But there's also a good thing about Retaliating C. If a card like Maxi does come off the list, and for some reason Konami puts it at 1, This card I think will probably see play just because when it leaves the field you get a Searchable C, which is just honestly incredible. As far as I know, there aren't any other really good generic earth insects that with 1500 or less attack that you can search with this. But if you guys actually have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. But the main use of this is one turn is a macrocosmos that will continually lock out your opponent. But then on your turn, it just acts as a free link material. If you're playing that type of deck, it's a level 4 for your rank 4 plays, if that matters. But yeah, I would say Retaliating C is definitely a hand trap that you guys should not forget. But just because it offers such a blowout type effect that pretty much just lasts as long as it's face up on the field. So if your opponent can't out it even after a while, like, it's still a macrocosmos on the field, which is really, really good. But with that being said, that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you guys want to see more types of these videos. I have a lot of fun making them. I think these are really, I get to look through like some very, very undervalued cards, and like I just see so much value in some of these cards, and I think they have so much potential in the future. So if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed once again, and I will see you guys soon. Take care.